So we've heard a lot of the importance of foresights today compared with insights, and I guess I agree with that. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Just imagine yourself spending an evening at home with two of your friends over a beer and a glass of wine. But wait, the situation isn't quite as it seems. Namely, each of you is in a different place. One is viewing paintings at the National Gallery, the other is planning their next summer holiday and in the process of screening various hotels, while you are examining rocks on Mars. Is it fair to refer to virtual and augmented reality or holographic computing as science fiction? Or perhaps a horror scenario, a dream world, maybe? We are convinced that the only way to shape the future is by conceiving of future and potential scenarios. Which brings me rather neatly on to our future study about megatrends, life worlds, and values in the year 2030. So many thanks for the Merlin Institute for hosting the conference and inviting me to talk to you today. My name is Hannes and I'm a senior research manager at GIM. And the purpose of this presentation on the Value Radar is to show you a key to enhanced brand navigation. So allow me to outline two agenda points. On the one hand, the presentation provides a workshop report of GIM's approach to futurology. Besides presenting some initial results regarding our megatrends, I'm going to give you an overview of our methodology, which, and that's the idea behind that, modernizes the classic Delphi method by integrating different modules. On the other hand, I shall demonstrate how insights and forecasts concerning our future values can be used for systematic brand management. That is to say, the study doesn't merely enable you to understand tomorrow's societies, but also draws up viable recommendations for brand management which are fit for the future and based on values, attitudes, and needs. So let me lead into the topic by two considerations. That's the first hypothesis. Firstly, to be honest, I always wondered why schools and universities teach us only about the world as some believe it was in the past and how it is in the present. But why didn't we use our time in the classroom to think about what it might conceivably be like in the future? Especially given that in everyday life, everybody is actually shaping and designing the future, for example, just by using energy. Some of us actually have jobs which are about planning and steering brands or products successfully into the future. So we definitely want to know what the future will look like. Unfortunately, that's my opinion, we are confronted with such complexity that nobody can reliably predict the future. But, and that's what we do in the qualitative research, we can talk about possibilities, about possible scenarios about the future. And this is vital if we want to be able to plan in the present. Secondly, in the postmodern era of the 80s and 90s, everybody followed the anything goes approach and believed that everything was subjective and relative. But after the many crises, changes, and challenges over the past 15 years, we've learned that this standpoint is relative too. We certainly live in extremely uncertain and volatile times, which explains why so many people, consumers, politicians, as well as CEOs, have a desire for orientation. And it is precisely here that the function of values kicks in. People's value priorities motivate the way they think and the decisions they make. They serve as guiding principles in people's life. Why? Probably because values themselves aren't just subjective and arbitrary. Consequently, if we want to know what drives people's thoughts and actions, we need to understand their values. And if we want to know what will sway and motivate people in the future, we should try to figure out how our values will be weighted, interpreted, and lived out over the coming years. So this is our study in a nutshell, I would say. Here you can see that the Value Radar is simply continuing an important tradition of our institute. We have in fact been conducting value and future studies since the 90s. So the heritage of GIM value research is based on a series of value studies or Delphi studies. They started in 1991. So GIM has conducted 3 general Delphi studies and 1 Delphi on mobility. The best known, maybe some of you know them, are Value Change in Germany from 1991, New Values, New Wishes from 2001, and the last from 2007 was Vision 2017. Yes, and currently we're conducting our research on an even bigger scale and using a new approach. In August last year, the GIM Lab Futures Studies began an elaborate exercise to map out possible futures. The objective of this transdisciplinary study is to gain insights into changing attitudes and values in society based on central megatrends. And these megatrends allow for well-funded conclusions about our societal value orientations in culture with a Western influence and in China. The chosen time horizon for the respective scenario is the year 2030. This enables us to derive and develop viable recommendations for value-based brand management, which is fit for the future. Of course, I would never venture to do that alone. We are working in a team of 5 researchers managed by Miriam and Björn, and this slide introduces Miriam from Zurich and Björn from Heidelberg. So, and in the following, I would like to introduce you very briefly to our innovative and holistic methodology, which modernizes the classic Delphi method by integrating different modules. So, I prepared a kind of flowchart where you can see that we started, top left, we started with a discourse analysis, which basically means reading and analyzing reports, articles, books. And then we conducted our so-called future launches in Berlin, Heidelberg, and Zurich. These were creative group discussions with young professionals, so tomorrow's change agents such as PhD students, postdocs, and startup founders, for example. And there we drew up scenario and hypotheses regarding societal changes in the future. Well, but just in case you envisage us sitting in comfortable armchairs and with a drink to hand, I have to disappoint you. The atmosphere was sufficiently laid back to allow creativity, but it was a working atmosphere nonetheless. The term, by the way, the term future lounge stems from a colleague of mine, as he was enthusing about the new kitchen at our Heidelberg headquarters. But to be honest, we never conducted these exercises in the kitchen itself. So, next, we analyzed and condensed the data in an internal interim workshop. There we developed final trend theses and arranged them into 5 clusters. These clusters, I will talk about them later, were used in our interdisciplinary Delphi study with some of today's renowned experts. In individual interviews, we asked them for their point of view regarding the impact of the megatrends on people's values, attitudes, and needs. Here you can see some of our experts from Germany, Switzerland, the US, and China and Great Britain. So, what are the next steps we need to take? We will conduct our next interim workshop this month, actually in the end of the week in Heidelberg, and shall use this opportunity to analyze the field phase and develop value thesis. This will be followed by what we refer to as translation sessions. These are roundtable sessions with internal GIM experts, and derive relevant and applicable implications for selected industries. These industries are at the moment automotive, mobility, services, and food. The next step, it's marked with the number 7, is our case study. ICU is GIM's integrated consumer understanding method. The idea of this quantitative survey is to identify relevant brand personalities, brand competencies, and brand benefits of a selected brand into 2 markets. Having conducted our case study, we will be able to compare our value forecast, that is our future perspective, with current brand values. And then the interesting question here is, are there mainly discrepancies of all areas of common ground? And this, from the idea, enables us to explore the fitness for the future and to derive strategic fields of action for a successful form of brand management which is fit for the future. Finally, of course, we will publish one of our reports and do a workshop with clients and summarize our results, and that's our basis for drawing up viable recommendations. So, the question, of course, what's new? These days, it's my opinion, we have easy access to so much information. That's no longer necessary to interview each and every expert. This means we can shorten the Delphi sessions, which in turn provides a scope for an interdisciplinary approach which involves integrating and mixing different modules. Hence, our research process includes individual as well as collective phases, qualitative as well as quantitative modules. Another remarkable point is that we don't talk about values in the framework of anachronistic milieus or age groups, because none of these once clearly defined zones and boundaries are stable anymore. Social groups are fluid, and individuals design themselves as patchwork identities. We therefore forecast values within the framework of societal, technological, and economic megatrends. Furthermore, we do not compile ad hoc reports every 7 years like many other institutes. Instead, we have established a continuous workflow to contextualize trend research and future studies within the bigger picture. And finally, our research in the field is systematically linked to the concrete tasks and tools for managing brands or products successfully into the future by integrating this so-called ICU approach. So, we are already in a position to present some of our results. We have identified 5 central structural changes which will accompany societies, or at least Western societies, over the next 15 years. These megatrends provide the basis on which to discuss possible impacts on those values which are important or likely to become important in the future. Today, I just want to summarize our 5 clusters. Okay, so let's look at this in more detail now and start with algorithmization. I'm absolutely convinced that we no longer live either online or offline. After all, it's no longer possible to distinguish between these 2 realities. We live on life, how philosopher Floridi calls it. Within this infosphere, connected machines crunch data to gain a more accurate impression of who we are and what we really want. Big data and robotization are based on smart software which allows for a new form of connectivity, automation, transparency, and that's maybe the most important point of it, this kind of a personal pre-selection of decision-making options. Let's take some practical examples and begin by looking at the new types of robotization. Top left, you can see Pepper. Nestle Japan began integrating Pepper into its Nescafé stores in December 2014 and plans to equip about 1,000 stores with Pepper to inform customers about different products and services. Pepper is responsible for attracting customers to the sales areas, fostering conversation with customers, and recommending the best coffee machine according to their preferences. Well, and what if we don't have to work anymore because of the robotization? Will we still cook our meals? Mole has created the world's first robotic kitchen, featuring an advanced, fully functional robot integrating in a beautiful designed professional kitchen. As you can see bottom right. The consumer version, due to be launched in 2017, will be supported by an iTunes-style library of recipes. And who's steering our customer journeys of the future? We ourselves or algorithms? Let's have a look at beacons, bottom left. These, as you are doubtless aware, are small transmitters sending pop-up informations to your smartphone. For example, to point you in the right direction of a restaurant you probably will enjoy. Additionally, they tell you the best time slot for your lunch, of course without any cues. And top right, you see a smart fridge. Or the smart home technology plays a vital role here. But we think that the main motor driving growth in the smart home sector is our aging society. This gives rise to features such as showers that detect when someone has fallen over and then alert the emergency services. So in other words, software, you can also call it artificial intelligence, isn't just able to recommend options, but also can decide for us. Right now, it doesn't really replace our decisions, but forces or nudges us in a certain direction. The question to be asked is whether this development will be understood in a negative way, as incapacitation and supervision, along with the loss of freedom and employment, or in a positive way, as a means of lightening our workload or burden, as a welcome reduction of complexity. Another crucial question for our study concerns the impact of total algorithmization on our values and attitudes. Take, for example, the idea of trust or confidence. Become more important, taking into account that the individual will have no other choice in a world of unverifiable numbers? Or will this value decrease in significance as we become increasingly intent on tracking things and making everything transparent along the line? Trust is good, but control is better. Okay. We call the next cluster utilization. Why? Well, you can observe in the media or in TV shows such as Super Talent, Top Model, or Shopping Queen, an atmosphere in which everyone has to be something special, stand out from the crowd, and possesses an exceptional talent of some kind. The pressure on the individual to self-optimize is enormous. Hence, the modern idea of self-realization turns into the concrete objective of self-utilization. The personality turns into social capital, and material property and intellectual goods become usable resources. This basically means that one's own personality, or even space and time, will become currencies and create new markets. The saying, "time is money," was never more true than it is today, it's my opinion. One example is the sharing or access economy, which definitely arises from non-material motivations, but also follows the maxim of usefulness. The BTL, the buy-to-let trend, means that people want to make money out of possessions such as flats, couches, shoes, or out of their social media influence. Here you can see some examples such as Airbnb, Vroomi, Uber, Cloud, or Squawk. Squawk, for example, is a platform on which you can swap your shoes. Another example is the website and mobile app Cloud, which quantifies human interaction by measuring the size of users' social media network. By using data points from social media, the Cloud score determines a person's influence or importance. Okay, now we go on to take about shaping or design. I mentioned earlier the pressure of optimization. This leads us to the quantified self and the trend of shaping oneself. But it's not only the self that is at stake here. Even the body and the environment are witnessing an unprecedented depth of intervention and public awareness. For example, genetic modification or even city or climate design. Nothing is considered to be in a completed state anymore. We believe that the sense of permanent better or constant incompleteness is on the increase. Here you can see some visuals. The starting point for optimization is, of course, to measure the status quo. The rating and valuation tool How Hot advertises with the claim, "Let artificial intelligence guess your attractiveness and age." An algorithm calculates the attractiveness of the user's face, and it's amazing, but the website counted over 2 billion visitors only the first 2 days. Bottom left, you see that global athletic leader New Balance launched a technology division dedicated exclusively to connecting consumers with the technology they desire to improve their athletic performance. The New Balance digital sport will focus on understanding, motivating, and improving the lives of athletes through digital experience and wearable technologies. The first consumer product to launch from the new division will be a smartwatch expected to begin retailing the 2016 holiday seasons. So the last point I will introduce today is fragmentation, because the crucial point is not everyone can and will participate in the brave new world. Western societies are becoming polarized along different lines. And for example, information competence, capital, health, participation in digital transformation. This diminishes social mobility. The result is people who are excluded or frustrated. This goes hand in hand with a search for meaning and or radicalization. The selected examples showcase an alarming development. Deluxe private cities that deny access to the wider public are springing up all over the world. What does this development mean for community life? For example, on August 2015, the Cannery opened its doors to the city of Davis, becoming California's first farm-to-table new home community. While we believe that gated communities and ideological groups such as IS, but also right-wing or left-wing extremists, are moving in to close the spiritual vacuum of Western societies. They provide warmth and social cohesion in a time where individualism leads to isolation. But there's also another way of experiences togetherness. We're witnessing the development of locality as a counter-trend to extreme mobility, migration, and globalization. People also want to switch off and concentrate, for example, on mindfulness. Consequently, individuals immerse themselves in tangible projects with local impact, a trend which also manifests itself in the New Maker movement, neighborhood support, and political participation of citizens at community level. Here are some examples, for example, the guerrilla gardening in Vienna or the urban manufacturing, bottom right. So let me recap what we have covered right now. Some might say we were into a little bit of crystal ball gazing here and calling it value radar. But I'm sure you will agree that this is very far from the truth, right? Futurology provides insights and foresights based on hindsight for conceivable scenarios. But it is very often the case that this view into the future is not systematically linked to the tasks and tools required for navigating brands or products successfully into the future. The GIM Value Radar is a unique approach that allows for future insights to be used for systematic brand management. It delivers an integrated system of consumer and brand understanding that can be directly applied for strategic measures in marketing or product development today.